Good evening. As you heard, there's definitely a need to have conversations. We've been having conversations, and this is a continuation of a series of conversations we've been having in the Ventura County area, but the topics aren't necessarily specific to Ventura County. You heard the numbers that Dexter just shared, and we're looking at a low percentage of the population as a whole. But every number is a life, and every life matters. That's why we are hearing the hashtag and the scream for Black Lives Matter. That's why you're seeing the national unrest that you see. And so it's important, particularly in communities where there are low numbers of African Americans, that we continue to have these kinds of conversations and make sure that our voices are uplifted and heard, although our numbers may not necessarily always reflect that. And so in that vein, what we want to do is have a conversation today about crime and kind of what leads to that crime, and what are some of the factors that cause us to have these challenges in our communities. And we've got a great host of panelists here today. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves here real quickly, and then we'll go ahead and just dive into the conversation, because I have some questions based on your area of expertise. We'll get started with Skipp Townsend.
Thank you for having me. My name is Skipp Townsend, and I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, and I came out tonight just to join you guys in this conversation.
And what's your background, area of expertise?
Well, for over 27 years, I was labeled as a gang member with LAPD and their gang database, but I'm Yvonne's son. You know, like I have a mother, I'm a middle child, and I never considered myself a gang member. I was part of a community, but you know, so I've been labeled as that. But ever since 2015, I have been working to change the dynamics of the community with an organization called Second Call. Also, I founded that organization with a guy named Kenny Smith, and I founded an organization called Black and Brown Alliance for Justice with a guy named Alex Sanchez and Johnny Torres. So we've been working in the community with the black and brown issues. We've been working to help individuals get in careers. We've also been bringing food to different communities that have been impacted by the violence by the LA County Sheriff and LAPD. We have Black and Brown Breaking Bread, where we teach on Kenzie. You know, the community is mourning the loss of the young man, but at the same time, they're being victimized by the sheriff and their services over there. So the healing process started with us when we brought food. Let's just, we don't even have to talk about it, man. Let's just eat.
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. I appreciate that. Let me touch bases over here. Melvin Nunnery, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of what brings you to the conversation today.
Yes, so obviously I'm Melvin Nunnery, and I have a sports social network called Scholarly, which allows athletes from high school to get exposure and recruited into universities that normally would not have an opportunity to get out. Some of them may be in gangs. Some of them might live in a gang area that need a way to get out. And so we built a platform, much like Facebook and Instagram, but for athletes. Also, what Scholarly is doing now is we're working with Anthony Langston out of Watts and Nickerson Gardens. And we're actually giving them free tutoring to these kids that while they're being homeschooled, we don't want the parents who haven't been in school for a while to be teaching these kids, because that's a challenge in itself. If you hadn't been doing algebra in 20 years and trig in 20 years, and your kid comes with his homework and you can't do the answers. So we thought it'd be a little difficult for some of the parents who are doing home teaching, so we decided to offer free tutoring to these kids in Watts.
Thank you so much for that. And, man, I'm glad I'm doing this because I'm writing questions I already have while we're going. Rossfontes, talk to us a little bit about you, your background, and your role in the community here.
All right. My name is Rossfontes, and I'm a counselor and personal growth professor at Oxnard College. I've been there since 2001 or 2. I've actually worked at UCSB for a number of years. I was a counselor at the Youth Authority for a few years, and I grew up here in Oxnard and in Compton. And I'm just here to talk about education and how that can be a resolving part of this healing that we need, this progress that we need, the fight that still needs to be endured, and just try to lend my expertise, lend my opinion, whatever I can, lend to the cause.
And realistically, that's what's gonna take, right? We heard that old African proverb, "It takes a village," and this is an example and an embodiment of that. Is that we are in a state of emergency right now, and we have been for some time. And in that state of emergency, it's best for us to lean back on the skills that we have to be able to help in the moment. Get kicked off with, a lot of folks will hear about gangs, and I really appreciate how you describe yourself as Yvonne's son, right? And tell us, what is the allure? What was the allure for you to be associated with this lifestyle that was demonized?
So for me, I didn't even realize anything about gangs until 1972, 73. Me and my friends would always go to the State Theater downtown LA and watch Bruce Lee movies. So I just wanted to be a little normal Chinese boy growing up in the community. I wanted to be Bruce Lee. And we were told that we couldn't go because the Crips were there. I didn't know what the Crips were, but at that point it made me dislike the Crips because I want to see the movies. We watch the same movie, Enter the Dragon, Chinese Connection. We watch the same movies every Saturday at the same place. And just because I had to stop, it made this bitter taste in my mouth for whoever the Crips were. So at some point, we weren't allowed to go to school, weren't allowed to go to the stores, weren't allowed to go places because the Crips were there. My grandmother moved to Inglewood in 1973. So in 1976, now I want to be black. I don't want to be Chinese. I want to go watch Superfly, the Mac. I want a pimp. I want a Cadillac, a gold chain. I want to get a pound now.
Right.
But I can't go to the movies there because they got a guy whose body was as big as, his arms were bigger than my body. A guy named Tookie, right? And him and Barefoot Pookie knocking people out at the Fifth Avenue movie theater. So once again, there's bitterness in my mind. Who are these dudes? I want to watch the movie. So it wasn't that I joined the gang. I decided I wasn't going to be a victim. One day I decided I'm going to fight back. And an older guy said, hey, well, why don't you fight this guy? You and Lucky fight. And then after we fought, he said, I'm going to tell you the good news and the bad news. He said, the bad news is you can't fight. The good news is you can whoop Bucky, but that ain't going to help you anywhere else that you could, because he can't fight either.
Yeah.
So,
You murdered one.
I barely won because of his fight. Man, y'all not ready for what you got coming up.
Right.
And at that point, man, that's when I got the cursing. Like, man, I don't care, man. I'm not going to be victimized. So I didn't join a gang. What I did was say I didn't want to be a victim of all the stuff that was going on, in the early 70s and late 70s. And it was law enforcement that considers us a gang. It was law enforcement that told us who we were and created a gang module. So it was never, there were certain people who gravitated to that and wanted to be known and famous as gang members. I simply want to move around the city of LA with no problems.
Right. Now, when you were saying that this older guy said you two fight, like your friend who said Bucky?
Yeah.
All right, so tell me about that relationship. How did you all know each other?
Well, we're in Inglewood at this time, so we're talking about going to the Fox Hills Mall, and we just want to go to the mall, and they said, man, you cannot go to the mall. The guy was Kevin Bell. He said, give me your money, because the Crips are going to take it when you get there. And I poked my chest out, they ain't not going to take nothing from me. And he said, man, you can't fight, Skip. I'm telling you, you can't. He said, well, you and Bucky fight. Show me what you got. But me and Bucky fought, and they laughed at us and said, man, if you go to the mall, don't take Bucky.
No.
Bucky, if you go to the mall, don't go with Skip, because y'all can't.
About how old were you there?
Man, we was 12, 13
Okay,
years old.
so what you just described to me was a typical American 12-year-old boyhood experience.
Yes, sir.
Yet it was demonized. What's the difference? Like, some folks may say, well, I could go to my mall in my neighborhood. There was nobody keeping me from going to my mall. There was no danger there. I don't get it.
Right. So, for the situation I just explained, we were looked at as victims. But there was another group who were looked at as the intruders, the guys who were the bullies, you know. And in every neighborhood, there is a bully. You know, it's the person who lacks whatever that lack is, whether it's a lack of father, lack of parenthood, lack of love, whatever the lack is, they gravitate to each other. So, you know, it's the old saying, it takes one to know one. And once they know each other, they lump themselves together. And hurt people hurt people.
And I was fortunate to live in Oxnard, and I had a bunch of brothers, and there was gangs in Oxnard and stuff like that, but we didn't have to get into that. I had both my parents, and all my brothers could fight. So we never had the issues of there was a blockage here. Everybody promoted us to play sports. When your last name was Nunnery, you was promoted to play sports. We'll fight for you. But we was like, we'll fight with you. So we had the fork in the road. And, you know, even in your own home, I took a different fork, the different side than my brother, let's say a Dave, my brother Dave, who enjoyed fighting. Like, this brother loved fighting, right? I liked fighting. I didn't love it, like, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, that's what he was good at, and he rocked with that, and I rocked with business. And I rock with going to school and learning the algebra and things of that nature. So a lot of the problems that happens in crime isn't necessarily because the brother wakes up wanting to beat somebody in the head. They gotta survive. You know, you can't be a punk and you can't do this. And so the police will say, yo, he's a thug, he's bad, he's that, but they don't understand what it's like to live in a neighborhood where you gotta get him up every day, you gotta chop him every day. I didn't have to live in that. Right? But I had guys on my team that were in Watts, and we would leave, even when I was at SC, we would leave SC, they would take me to a burger joint in Watts. I forgot what the name was. It's right across the street from Nixon Gardens. Hawkins, yeah. My roommate was Johnny Drums, and Hawkins, them was his people. Man, we go over there, man, and you know, I'm thinking I'm getting ready to fight this dude, Green Eyes. I don't know if you know Green Eyes. But man, he's talking crazy. My roommate's talking crazy about Green Eyes. I'm thinking I'm getting ready to fight this joker because you're talking crazy. I ain't no gang member. When Green Eyes showed up, I find out that he's a shooter. I ain't fighting. I'm not fighting no Green Eyes.
They running your house.
Yeah, and that ended it for me.
Yeah.
Right? I went back to campus and I got back into them clubs.
Right.
Because you don't know what you're gonna run into.
Right.
So my path was leave them jokers alone, because they do that for real, and let me do what I do, which is go and get those bucks where it's safe and where I can take care of my family, and I wasn't forced to live in that. And that's the difference with some of the people in the gangs and myself being able to make it out, is I didn't have those road barriers, right? I had both my parents in the house, I was in a good neighborhood, and I played sports, and I was able to get a good education, and now I do very well in business.
Well, and I think I want to hit that because, you know, I with the platform that I've created with Coffee with the Black Guy, I do hear a lot. I'm talking to people across the platform, diverse groups of individuals, and a lot of it is just understanding each other's lifestyles, right? And so, you know, there might be some white folks who I encounter who are encountering our youth in the community who kind of just don't get it. Right?
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you just move to another neighborhood? Like, the neighborhood is so dangerous. Why wouldn't your mom just move you out to another neighborhood?
Well, it's not that easy because one, sometimes they don't have the credit to move, and they don't have the money to move, and a lot of times the government and stuff make it so hard for both the parents to be there. If I'm going to help you out, the husband can't be there, and so now it's better for the husband not to be there. And then these mothers is raising these boys. But then the father figures is the dudes in the gang, right? Or their homeboys is the dudes in the gang. So it's not that easy for them to just move out because it takes money, it takes, you know, credit, and it takes a lot of different things that adds up to that.
And I'm glad you pointed out because I want to make sure that our viewers are cognizant of that policy element of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a rule that says that the father can't be in the house because of financial.
Correct.
That the father can't be in the house if you're going to be able to have access to this assistance.
The assistance.
You need this assistance because you already said you're not making enough money to be able to make ends meet, right?
Yeah.
And so just trying to build a full picture of what the environment of some of these elements that end up being labeled as crimes, like what is the environment that breeds that kind of a thing. And quite frankly, that's parallel to the conversation that we had prior to this when we were talking about policing and interfacing with law enforcement and things of that nature. These are very parallel conversations, yet I think that part of the problem that we're seeing right now is there's that lack of understanding of the conditions that create this environment.
Oh, yeah.
Indeed.
Well, I was having a conversation with somebody, and I was saying, the government is giving out these stimulus checks. You may get $1,300, you may get $1,200. And that doesn't solve the problem. If you're drowning, don't give me more water. It would have did better for the government to give everybody an 800 FICO score. No money, an 800 FICO score. And you know what would happen? If I can guarantee that them two brothers would have got an 800 FICO score, they're going to want to keep it. And they're going to work hard to keep it. They're going to make their payments on time. They're going to buy a little something here. They're going to make their payments. They're going to keep it because great credit is something to be proud of. And also, you're able to get an apartment, you're able to get a car, and you're able to feel good about yourself. Once you get that $800 or the $1,200, you're going to spend it. Because you still got previous bills that you was thinking about, and then you got this girl you want to take out, and then you got something you want to get to your kids because you haven't been able to make those payments in a while. And so all that money was gone, and you right back to having nothing, you're ready to chuckle.
Yeah.
Give them jokers an 800, 850 credit score, and then you're going to see a difference in the communities.
Ross, talk to me about that. I've seen you do that in the community time and time again. You have kids who are involved in sports and different activities in the community, but I never see you just with them.
Well, I figured that's part of my mission. You know, I feel like, back to the situation when I was saying about when we went to dinner with the guys from Canada, and he wanted to hear about Compton, but he wanted to hear the stereotypical drive-by stuff. Right? You know, I was like, okay, I've been shot at, but let me tell you about Miss Allen, who lived next door to me, and if I had a girl on the porch, she's calling my mom. Or Mr. Matthews or Mr. Christmas signed me up for football even when my mom couldn't pay. You know what I mean? Let's tell that story. Because they don't do no boys in the hood or no straight out of Compton about that. But there's some people there that made the difference in me. And so when I say don't forget where you came from, that's what I'm talking about. And so that's where I came from, where people who weren't relatives did what relatives do. And so for me, I was like, man, you know, I want to coach. I want to be around kids. I want to be able to mentor. I want to be able to help. I mean, I had guys from Centennial up at Oxnard College playing basketball. One of them got his master's, and he's doing his own philanthropy group down in he was giving out food at Dominguez High School 2 weeks ago. So I'm like, man, you can't put a price on that. You know, I feel like I'm obligated to do that.
So I mean, I hear you, I feel you, and I know everybody here in this conversation right now agrees. Okay, I don't know how this is going to come out, but so basically, you're able to be successful because somebody invested and poured into you, right?
Yeah, and not just money. You know, just
right, knowledge.
Just somebody to tell me that I was going to be okay. You know, even if it was, shoot, you know, I don't want to get into stories, but you know, you have people on the block who are looking out for you. You know, who've been in jail, done dead stretches, who's selling drugs, and they be like, hey man, you don't want to do this, man. Go and do this way, right? And I listen.
But nobody, like, somebody helped you along that way, but nobody told you when, like, you need to do this for somebody else. Like, that's something that's just in us. Like, the reason we're having this conversation instead of going on and enjoying our Friday at the end of a long week and paying attention to our situation and our challenges, the trials and tribulations of our lives. We're here talking about something greater than ourselves. And that's because...
That's being woke. You know what I'm saying? That's that people saying, oh, you got to wake up or you got to be woke. If you woke, you know you're not gonna do what society's telling you to do, to victimize your people or stereotype and stigmatize your people. You're gonna try and do the opposite of that. Because I've been there, you know, and I've seen other people who've been there too. And I just wanna let them know, hey, it's gonna be all right. You know, you have some people that's looking out for you that believe it. And that's the grassroots that we need. When we start talking about police, you know, policing the police, we need to be the police in our own neighborhood.
Well, and that's exactly what this brother was saying, is like the reason his community respects him is because he's a part of his community.
And I bet he could diffuse a lot more stuff than somebody coming in with a badge.
But listen to what I said, he's a part of the community, right? You know, when we look at who puts on a badge and a uniform and is policing our communities, where do they live?
Everybody got to be visible on their own terms. They, you know, what they feel comfortable with. Like for me, a lot of people say they denounce their communities and their tribes. For me, I embrace it because for me to denounce it stops giving me that LTO, that license to operate my community. Because as long as I'm from there, I can do what I want to do. And if I want to bring peace and productivity and bring 500 turkeys and shut down the street, bring a day where they got job resources to hood, I do what I want to do. So that's how I look at it. Everybody's not going to look at it like that. But for me, I go through there and I go through there with the same t-shirt, but my t-shirt says something else. When you ask me about the t-shirt, you open the door and I give you the conversation. You know, so they see me riding around in a road ride. They see me riding around on 26. I'm riding in the peace ride though. I got United in Peace on my doors. Oh, I seen y'all rolling through. Yeah. Hey man, I got my bike. I'm coming through. Come through. You know, so that's how you lead by example. So many examples to lead.
But the feeling is, the answer to that why is, if not you, who?
Exactly.
Right? Because if we don't care about us and we don't demonstrate that care for us, how are we going to expect others to care for us?
But like you saying, you got to give some of that money to the community. You know, you paying for a person to retire at 55 with 100% when that money could be on the block. I was watching a PBS documentary the other day about Newark, New Jersey, and the Department of Justice took over the police department. And then Mayor Riccardi took some of public funds and gave it. I don't know how much some cats are making, but they're ex-felons, gang members, they from the community. And guess what? They said that violent crimes went down 50%.
Of course. You know, that came from LA.
Yeah.
He got that from Keela Sherrills and Akil Bashir went out there training. So that concept came from our group.
But I'm just saying, pay them cats.
Right.
Because we went down 50 when they started. It's been over 50. Now we're trying to work to get that 50 down 50.
As we're kind of, you know, coming to the close of the conversation, I want to make sure that we really culminate on something that might be useful. And I know we touched on this a little bit just here a minute ago, Skipp, but the whole idea of mental health. It sounds like just a simple bullet point under the whole, how do you manage your mental health, the whole notion of mindfulness. I think it sounds like that is the start of that conversation, right? It doesn't have to be called mental health. Be mindful, be present, right? How do you have that conversation with folks?
It's difficult. That's one of the most challenging things that I've done is to talk to people who, you know, what I say it like this, it's hard for me to have a conscious conversation with an unconscious person. So if I'm laying here unconscious right now, I ask people, what are you going to say to me? Everybody says, I'm going to say, wake up. I'm going to say, what's wrong? I'm going to say, I'm unconscious. So at that point, I can't hear you. It doesn't matter what you say to me. So I have to, just like I was taught when the people were out there shooting, one of my mentors taught me, hey, Skipp, just wait till they stop shooting and then talk to them. So I have to wait till this person is conscious when they're really able to grasp the concept. And even if I talk till I'm blue, but it's what is their perception of what I'm saying? So I got to be mindful also that I got to listen with the intent to understand and not just think that what I'm saying is resonating. Because I'm thinking what I'm saying makes so much sense, but their perception of what I'm saying is crazy. So I have to be a patient person. I have to just listen more and find that, like I said, I'm a manipulator. I can manipulate a person and find out what they want. If it's chicken, let me tell you real quick, I had a conversation with 5 Deuce Hoovers. I'm not from 5 Deuce, not from Hoover, didn't even know. I met one dude, known him like 2 days, and they said his house is the house. I went to Hot and Ready, got the pizza for $5, got 2 pizzas and a thing of chicken, sat on top of my car, and they came out to eat, and I said, man, I just want to talk pizza. Oh, we ain't gonna have no pizza. Is that what you bought the chicken for? But I just engaged them in a conversation.
That was pizza.
They were mental crazy, right? But they sat there for at least that hour and a half. They indulged with me with chicken and pizza, and we talked about peace, even though I didn't get it. It was a start for me.
So, and that is a description of what I was going to read, and we'll take our time to truly be present in the moment, environment, and experience without being reactive or feeling overwhelmed. That's all you just explained in layman's terms. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
We just house people with that same tactic, because I'm out there and I get on their level. I don't talk like I'm a butt, and there's homies out there homeless, you know, and we stopped the encampment in the 2.5 years I worked there. The encampments are gone. At least 95% went to housing that normally wouldn't go to housing because of the conversation that people, like myself and the case manager, like myself from the same place, can relate to these people. And that's that license to operate. I'm like, hey man, I've been up there talking to the people, man, they got this program. I looked into it, I spoke on your behalf, it's good, look into it. And then it was good. And it really worked to a certain degree, but with that mental health situation, if you get them off on the streets and you put them somewhere, we need that life skill program, which they don't have.